Hey guys, welcome back to CapView. So today we're doing another list. Now this time it's going to be a top or best human killers slash villains in horror and thriller films. So I wanted to do this specifically. I kind of got the idea from another YouTuber because you guys know I watch like different YouTube channels, movie channels and stuff like that. So like I've been doing a lot of lists lately and I watch a lot of other, YouTubers doing like rankings and countdowns of like horror films and stuff. So I kind of thought it would be cool to do the human serial killers or just killers in horror and thriller films. So I say human specifically because I want to do a separate video on like the creature feature type killers in films. So the your like predators and your aliens, which we'll get to. But this one is going to specifically focus on the human aspect of killers in films. Now, this can be, when I say human, I mean um, someone who is currently an actual human or someone who was in the past in human form and maybe is like a supernatural presence at this point. Something like that. But not necessarily like complete monster, complete creature type, like predator sort of a thing. So, like, not your Godzillas and stuff like that, like an actual person that is just a psycho killer or like a creepy killer, all that sort of stuff. So I'm gonna go through my list now. It's not in any particular order. I'm just gonna go through the killers that stand out to me. Now these are gonna be like really awesome, like sadistic villains that are just done really well in like thriller slash horror films, or they're gonna be like super scary or super creepy, things like that. So these are just my top or best ones that I've seen in films over the years. Also, I'm not recording with my buds today, I'm just recording the ambient sound. There's a tap drip. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but like I'm home by myself as usual and it's nighttime. I have lights on, which is great, but like I can hear drip, drip, drip. So if you guys hear all the weird sounds, um, that's my house just making noise. So kind of creepy, and I'm doing a list about this stuff. Let's go. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the list. It's quite extensive, so just prepare yourself. Grab your popcorn or chips or whatever snack you want and a beverage. It's gonna be a while. I'm gonna try and get through them pretty quickly. Now, some of these characters, or I don't know the actual character names, they're just the killers in the films, so I might reference them by the actor's name or vice versa. So just prepare for that. Please don't correct me in the comments. I'll try and put the killers' names because some of them I don't know, so I might put them down in text form for you guys to see if you want to know what the actual killer's name in the film is, or I might, like I said, just say the actor's name. So I'm gonna stop rambling. Let's get to the list. All right, in no particular order. The first one off the bat is of course the OG. So I'm gonna start with the OG, which is the scariest one. My favorite like horror serial killer in horror films, which is the lovely Michael Myers. Michael, oh Michael. Michael scares the shit out of me, you guys. He scares the poop out of me, and that is why he is my favorite. So I don't know how that works. I guess if you're a horror person, maybe that makes sense to other you guys who are into horror. Maybe that makes sense to you, or maybe like you guys like someone because for other reasons. But I like Michael because he's just completely an unstoppable force. It's insane. It's insane. Like he's been shot, he's been hung, he's been burned, he's been stabbed. He likes to stab a lot. He got stabbed. He doesn't care. You know when they're like, oh, if you take your own medicine, see how you like it. Michael gives zero fucks. He doesn't care. So he's been electrocuted. Oh my god, Buster Rhymes. Was that Buster Rhymes? Anyway, I digress. I was just thinking about that. Yeah, Michael gives zero fucks. Michael cannot be killed. He doesn't die. And I think it's really so fascinating, even though there's different timelines in the franchise, that the first original film, which is one of my favorites, it used to be my favorite film, a horror film, but like the fact that he was a young boy when he first did all these killings, and that first history isn't really explained. And then I loved the Jamie Lee, the H2O sort of situation where they revamped the storyline and sort of gave it the backstory that Laurie was his sister and that's why he's after her because he killed his original sister and stuff. So like, I thought that was really interesting. But like, I just like Michael. I don't like the films that you see him unmasked. I like the allure of mystery. I think that's what makes him so scary, like specifically with masked killers in films. He's just unstoppable and he's so creepy. He is the boogeyman, you know what I mean? And that is terrifying because he could just show up at any point in time, do you know what I mean? So I just feel like Michael is the top, he's the OG, and yeah, he's super, super scary. Okay, number two on my list is going to be Samara Morgan from The Ring, aka Samara. I just call her Samara. 7 days. Yep, that's her. So, Samara from The Ring. Basically, Samara's story is such a little girl. She was a little girl, and she comes back in her creepy, watery zombie form to kill everybody. And basically, the reason why you have to wait 7 days before she kills you, and during that 7 days, you start to like see stuff and have like hallucinations, but not really, because that when she was a little girl, she had this thing. It's called, I think it's Ninja. I'm gonna write it because I suck. But basically, she has these powers or abilities where she burns images into people's minds and then sort of makes them do stuff, kind of like telekinesis, where that's what she did, and she would just have horrible things that would happen to people, her parents specifically, the animals on the farm. I think she like killed all the horses or made them jump off a cliff or something like that. And she was responsible for a lot of like bad like turmoil that happened, specifically with her mother, who at some point lost her mind and couldn't handle it anymore. And so what she did was she suffocated Samara, thinking she had killed her, and then threw her down the well, and then like closed the well up basically. But Samara didn't actually die from the suffocation. I think she just was unconscious or whatever. And then she actually tried to survive. She tried to claw her way out of the well, and she eventually died after 7 days from starvation, hypothermia, etc. So that's a really tragic situation, and why wouldn't you come back and kill everybody after that situation? She already couldn't control her stuff when she was alive and stuff. So there's a really iconic like haunting scene where they're interviewing her, and they were, she was taken to doctors to try and figure out what's going on, and they're interviewing her and they're like, oh, you don't really want to hurt people, and Samara's like, no, I do, and I'm sorry, but it's not going to stop. And it was iconic. So I'm going to put it down in the thing so you guys can see it. Okay, and we've switched locations. As you can see, I could not handle the dripping anymore, you guys, and I put the buds in. So hopefully the audio is pretty good. But just so you know, you might hear some background noise at this point. So hopefully that doesn't affect the video quality too much. So let's move along. Number 3 on my list is going to be, I don't know his name. Is it Robert? I don't know. But it's played by this actor, and he's awesome. I always forget his name. But it is the killer from Disturbia. Yes, I did have Rihanna's song playing in my head as I said that. Disturbia, which is one of my favourite horror thriller films that I've mentioned a few times, starring Shia LaBeouf, Sarah Roma, Carrie-Anne Moss is in this, and this actor who I always forget his name, but he's a very good actor, and he plays this psycho killer who essentially moves in next door to this young teenager who is on house arrest, and so he has way too much time on his hands, played by Shia LaBeouf, of course, before Shia LaBeouf whatever happened to Shia LaBeouf. And essentially he witnesses with his binoculars, he's like looking out and like seeing what everybody's doing because he's stuck at home. And he witnesses what he thinks is a murder, and this guy murders somebody. And it's like this whole cat and mouse thing. And this guy is so. What I love about this actor, and he definitely puts it into the characters that he plays, specifically this character. Oh, I think his name is Robert Turner. Am I right? It's coming back. But he basically plays this very charismatic guy. And, we always love the serial killers that are charismatic. Like, it's just something that intrigues the psyche, I feel like, as a human being, to understand the serial killers that are like that. So I feel like we as horror fans like that in the genre. When I see that, it's, very interesting to me to understand how someone can be so normal and then be so psychotic, which I guess is like it's the break, and you try and see like where, but he does such a good job of hiding it so well, and he definitely comes off as very creepy and ominous in the film, but I feel like that comes off as mysterious to like other people, as opposed to what this kid knows is actually like him being a psycho murderer that just kills women in his basement and cuts their bodies up. So he's just absolutely crazy, and when you finally sort of see the twist at the end of the film and you get to see everything revealed, because you're always like, did he, didn't he, is he, isn't he, is this all like in the imagination? It's just so good. he's a very smart killer as well, and very meticulous, and I kind of really like that. Although at the start you do see him sort of fumble a bit, and then once he realizes though, it's like an animal hunting its prey. Once he realizes that he's been, targeted or sought after by this kid, he does everything to sort of make his life miserable, and then he puts this whole like mousetrap plan, and it's so good to see, and he's just brutal and vicious, and I love it. So he is definitely on my list. Moving on to number four is going to be another iconic thriller. I want to say thriller. It's not really a horror to me, which is Misery, and Kathy Bates as whatever her character's name is. I will put it down if I find it. So Kathy Bates in Misery. Oh goodness, that is such a good film. It's an OG, kind of old school, and Kathy Bates essentially plays this character who is a huge fan of this writer, and then she like traps him. Like he ends up injured outside her house, and then she basically like cares for him and nurses him back to health because he's got a broken leg and he can't do anything. And this poor writer goes through it, you guys, and Kathy Bates is absolutely bonkers, and he doesn't realize, I think, at first that she's so psychotic. And it's really fascinating to watch her. She's so good. She's such a great actress. I'm a big fan of hers. And it's just really great to see her snap. And again, you see the psyche of that kind of psychotic type killer. I really enjoy seeing these, human characters in these films, especially done like that, written like that. And yeah, she just basically traps him. And the scene where she hobbles him, I cannot. That is such a. There's something about a killer that just has nothing there. Like they're so strung out on what they're doing that is either right or they just don't care or it's a fetish. Like there's a reason always. And it's just something about seeing that snap of someone who's that psychotic that is just like, this is a good idea. I'm going to do it. And there's nothing you can do to stop them. And when you see that terror um, on his eyes, like James Caan is really good in that as well. But yeah, Kathy Bates, got to give it to her. So she's definitely on the list. Okay, coming in at number five is going to be the remake, aka Sean Bean in The Hitcher. I think he's meant to play. Is it John Ryder? Was that the original? I will have to Google it and let you guys know. This is going to be edited, so bing, there it is. Okay, so he plays this character in The Hitcher, and that is a remake of The Hitcher starring Sophia Bush. I forget his name. All I think of is Jim from the comedy film, that TV show that he was in. But yeah, so Sophia Bush was really good in this, and the dynamic between him and her specifically in this film, because there's a scene where he like breaks in and like forces his hand over her mouth, and he's just so overpowering. And he's this big tall guy. He's a hitchhiker, and he's a serial killer, basically a hitchhiker serial killer, and he gets picked up by a family who he just murders, and he basically taunts and stalks and cat and mouses this poor couple that come across him, and they didn't pick him up. And essentially it's kind of almost like an urban legend. It's like, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. But I think he definitely gets some enjoyment and pleasure out of it, and he plays this game, I guess, with himself to sort of challenge himself, and he seems to really enjoy like having a challenge. There's an iconic scene with a truck, two trucks, and bodies in splitting in half. And yeah, he's just so crazy, and I love Sean Bean's performance in this. Specifically the scene where he's revving the truck, and you just see him like grin and like, oh, he's just so like crazy, and you can see like he's loving it. And yeah, again, there's something about watching somebody having their psychotic break. This one is in fetish, enjoyment, pleasure form that we see it with Sean Bean's character, and he's just absolutely mental. There's also like a specific little scene in when he's in the back seat with the family, and he's got a teddy bear and he's like waving it. It's so creepy, because you know who he is and what he's gonna do, and yeah, it's a really good film actually. But yeah, Sean Bean is just so badass in this film, so that's why his character is on my list. Now, number six. Now, I have to admit, I'm kind of one of those people that roots for the bad guy a lot. So I tend to enjoy films that other people don't enjoy. I tend to really like villains and killers in films, and I really enjoy a little bit of punishment for people that are stupid in films or that do the wrong thing or that just are irresponsible or just shitty people. Like, I don't feel bad when they get murdered. I want them to be murdered and I enjoy watching it. So, one of my killers that I really love for the audacity and the smarts has to be Jigsaw. Jigsaw from Saw is one of the best villains ever, I think. He's just so good. I don't remember the actual character's name, like it's on the tip of my tongue. Is it John? Damn it. I wish I could remember. I should. I've seen it so many times. The original was really good. And the second one. I'll put it down below as usual. So I'm just going to call him Jigsaw. So Jigsaw punishes people that have done wrong in their life, that have just gotten away with things that they shouldn't have got away with, and it's like a retribution sort of thing. But he does it in it's torture porn, so he does it in the most sadistic, cruel, violent ways. And the best part about it is he puts you in a situation where you have to do it to yourself, and you get to choose the lesser of two evils, and you get to choose most of the time your form of punishment, or you can do nothing and like have your head snapped by a giant brace or something like that. So it's just his sadistic, methodical killing sprees that he goes on is just really enjoyable to watch. I don't love all the films as such. It's just him. And when he was really involved in the first like two films, I really enjoyed that. And yeah, so he's definitely on my list. Okay, so the next killer on my list is going to be Mr. No Name Killer, because I don't know his name, and I haven't seen this film in such a long time, but I did watch like clips of it last night just to refresh my memory if this was in fact the film, and yes it is. And that is the film High Tension and the murderer from that film. Now, just to give you guys an idea, this is probably one of the grossest. I've got like different types of killers on this list. I've got really creepy and super scary and absolutely terrifying, your Michaels. Then I've got the smart, methodical, meticulous psychopaths that are under the radar, right? And then I've got just absolutely fucking disgusting, disturbing, the worst, just the pits of a human, just the scum of the earth. This guy's one of them. So there's a scene, and I'm not gonna. He's just. There is a scene where, ugh, so gross, so gross. Prepare yourself. Are you ready? It's disgusting. There is a scene, and I have to mention it because it's kind of memorable. It's disgusting, but it sticks with you for that reason. Where he's, I don't know if it's the first scene we see him in, but he is essentially giving himself pleasure. He's having oral sex with, you see him in the truck and he's like, it looks like he's getting a BJ, except he then throws the head out of the window. So you realize he's doing it to himself with a decapitated head that he, yeah. So, yeah, that happened. That happened. I was so fucking disturbed, you guys. I nearly threw up. Huh. So that was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. Like, I've seen some really disgusting, brutal, tortured kills, but to necrophilia, no thank you. That is honestly up there. I can't do that. And the worst part is like, you don't know that that's what's happening until he throws the head out. It's like, oh my god, what did I just witness? I can't get it. Help, get it out. And so now it's burned in your brain. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. If you haven't seen it, don't watch it. But yeah, this killer is just brutal. He's ruthless. He's a very brute force, and he is, again, very psychotic and just extremely brute and scary, and just, you don't want to come anywhere near him. So he is on my list for that reason. Okay, let's move on to a calmer killer. A slightly calmer killer. And that is going to be Harrison Ford in the film What Lies Beneath. Don't know the character's name, gonna put it down here. Harrison Ford is so good in this film. Michelle Pfeiffer is, oh my goodness. You guys, I cannot take a bath ever without feeling like Michelle Pfeiffer in What Lies Beneath. Every single time. Every time I have a bath, it doesn't matter that I have bubble baths. with bubbles everywhere. It makes no difference. I have so many so frequently tried. I don't have that like bath plug that she tries to get with her toes when she's coming out of the thing. The numbness is wearing off, but like I have frequently like tried to sit there and move my toes, thinking about this stupid film every time I have a bath, being like, I wonder if it was me and I was paralyzed. Could I do this? Could I do that? Like, I have weird baths, you guys. It's all because of this damn movie. But back to Harrison Ford. So Harrison Ford, again, a very smart, intelligent man. He plays a doctor, and his wife is convinced that her neighbor has murdered his wife, and then she finds out that that's not the case because she's basically having these like strange feelings, and like things are falling in her house, doors are closing and then opening, she's hearing things. She just has this weird feeling being in this house, and her husband essentially convinces her that she's essentially insane and she's going crazy and it's all in her head. She even sees a psychologist at some point to try and understand why she's seeing the things she's seeing and feeling this presence. And we find out in the end of the film that, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, please go watch it. Don't let me ruin it for you. It's such a good film. I wish I could watch it all over again for the first time. Ah, memories. But yeah, so we find out in the end that he actually, I think, cheated on her, or he had another woman, and he murdered this woman to be with Michelle Pfeiffer's character, and he's married to Michelle Pfeiffer and all that. But this other woman comes from the dead and like warns her, and essentially reveals the psychopath that he actually is. So it's so good. He's so good in it, and again, it leaves you questioning whether he did or he didn't do it. You actually think Michelle Pfeiffer's character is crazy at one point. Like it's super like well done. And Harrison Ford, I gotta give him credit. Like they both put a great performance on, but Harrison Ford's character, you feel sorry for him. Like he looks innocent. It's just really well done. So he plays a methodical serial killer, psychopath, and serial killer because he tries to kill Michelle Pfeiffer, by the way. And yeah. Okay, my next killer on the list is going to be Amy Dunn from Gone Girl, aka played by Rosamund Pike. Rosamund Pike is so good, and honestly, I want to put her on my list again. I really do. I think I might. It might be in part two, you guys, because there's another character, and oh my goodness, I think I have to. But anyway, this character, Amy Dunn. So this woman plays a wife who has disappeared, presumed dead, to be presumed murdered by her husband, who is a piece of shit. He's a sack of shit, played by Ben Affleck. So, you basically have this whole like mystery treasure hunt situation, and it's narrated by her because she writes a diary, essentially setting up her own murder. She sets up her husband, who's a cheating piece of shit, who they have a completely toxic relationship, and the commitment and effort that this woman goes to be such a methodical killer. And the thing is, she's not actually a killer until the third act of the film, I believe. So she actually is, all she tried to do was, she's very like sadistic and manipulative, very manipulative in this bitch. Definitely psychotic and has psychopathy traits, and she essentially sets up this whole plan. She manipulates other people, like neighbors. She writes the diary and falsifies information. She does this elaborate like stuff to just set him up. She hurts herself. She literally hits herself with a hammer to injure herself. She gets blood. She pretends she's pregnant. Oh my goodness, you guys. This woman goes the whole 9 yards to frame her husband simply because he's a piece of shit and she just wants him to go to jail. And then she's like, I'm free, I can live my life. Except she gets fucked over because she fucks up in the middle of the film and then actually has to like change her plan. And when you see her like improvise and adapt and then kill somebody, she slits a guy's throat in the middle of making love to him. Yeah. It's just so, she's so crazy and sadistic, and she's got to be up there with one of the most psychotic and smartest killers I have ever seen. So super big props and hats off to Rosamund Pike. I love her character in this film. I know a lot of people watch this film and just hate her. I don't hate her. Like I root for the, he's a piece of shit. Like I don't know. It was just really enjoyable to watch. So I loved her character. Okay, now the last one for this list is going to be ending off on a strong and a high note, and that is going to be one of the best, if not the best, I think it's the best. OG, best serial killers ever in film history. And that is going to be Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins, playing Hannibal Lecter. Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Dr. Hannibal Lecter, he's a psychiatrist. He's highly, highly intelligent. He's just one of those guys that will see through your soul. He will know when you're lying. He can pick apart little things about you. He can just decipher things that you didn't want him to. He crawls under your skin. And that's why I really love his character. The way he's portrayed, Anthony Hopkins, is legendary. His portrayal of Lecter, the first shot you see when Clarice walks and you just see Lecter standing there, like, in his cell, like, just with this creepy, wow, like, it was so powerful. And the way his eyes just lock onto you and he stares at you like he's just pulling apart a little puzzle of your soul when he's having those scenes with Clarice. Oh my goodness, it's so good. I even enjoyed him in, I think it's Hannibal with Julianne Moore. He's just great. Even when he aged and he keep coming back for the role, he's fantastic. He never lost that Lecterness of him. I also really enjoyed him and the dynamic between him and Edward Norton in Red Dragon. But the first one, that was The Silence of the Lambs, his portrayal in that was absolutely stunning and amazing. And fun fact, if you guys didn't know this, they actually didn't shoot, I think, any of the scenes or many. I think there was like 2 scenes that actually shot together. So when you see the scenes of him behind the glass and then her and it pans back and forth and they're having a conversation, none of them shot their scenes in front of each other. So that wasn't a real thing. Like the cell was set up obviously, but Lecter was sitting there like Anthony Hopkins was sitting there saying the lines to himself as if she was there, I think, and vice versa with Jodie Foster's character. So that's kind of amazing, like, to have that performance. Oh my goodness, you guys, like, he's one of the best killers. And then the fact that he's a cannibal is like, you almost forget about it until you know what I mean. And he, like the Father Bean situation, I honestly almost forget about it. He's so charismatic and alluring. He would kill me. He would kill me like this, you guys, because I would be so fascinated by him. I want to meet him. I wanted to be Clarice watching this film. I really did. Like, he's insane, but it's like seductive. At least to me, that's what his character is to me, or for me. For any of these other characters that I'm talking about, like, it's Hannibal Lecter, like, OG, guys. So that'll do it for this list. I'm going to come back and give you guys a second part. So you guys are going to see the second part if you want to. I hope you watch it. I hope you enjoyed this. You can let me know down below which ones you like, which ones are your most iconic or best or scariest killers. There might be some that are on my list on the next part. So we'll see. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, you guys. And I'll see you guys on the next one.